Is Donovan Mitchell really going to be traded from the Utah Jazz? If so, where will he go? That is the question that many people are asking, and the answers honestly aren't getting much clearer right now. Despite being one of the best players in the NBA and definitely one of the best players on the Jazz, his fate in the league is up in the air because, by all indications, he's going to be traded. But no one knows to whom or for how much. Given that NBA training camps are starting, this puts even more pressure on those trying to get him before the season starts. So, who are the frontrunners here? Donovan Mitchell. Nothing lasts forever. We know this to be true. Still, it feels like the dissolution of the relationship between NBA star Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz is coming about rather abruptly due to all that's happening with the team right now. The Jazz entered the 2021-22 season with legitimate title aspirations. They ended up getting eliminated in the first round of the playoffs despite Luka Doncic not being available for the first 3 games of the series they had against the Dallas Mavericks. There have been a lot of rumors surrounding Mitchell and Rudy Gobert after the Jazz experienced yet another disappointing early postseason exit. It appears at this juncture that Gobert is the more likely of the 2 Jazz stars to be dealt if either of them gets moved at all. However, the Heat should be keeping a close eye on Mitchell. The Miami Heat have been mentioned as a potential blockbuster trade candidate, and if Mitchell were to be available, they could field an enticing offer. But obviously, such a trade would need to have a lot going on for it to be made possible. So, what are the options on the table here? The Heat deal. Utah Jazz receive guard Tyler Herro, center Omar Yurtseven, forward Duncan Robinson, 2023 first-round pick, Miami, and a 2026 first-round pick, Miami. Miami Heat receive guard Donovan Mitchell. It's not often a team is forced to trade a star in the 25 and under club for their immediate replacement. The Miami Heat are in a position to offer the Utah Jazz that exact opportunity. Admittedly, this is a steep price for the Heat to pay. Herro is likely to be awarded as the 6th man of the year in 2021-22. That's quite an accomplishment for the 22-year-old. The cost shouldn't concern the Heat. Miami's a premier free agent destination. First-round picks aren't as valuable to them as a small-market club. On the surface, there's a case to be made that making a big trade isn't necessary for the Heat considering they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. However, their lack of backcourt production makes it challenging to justify just running it back. A small-market club like the Jazz, for example, if they're dealing Donovan Mitchell, they'll require draft compensation. This deal arms them with 2 first-round selections in addition to some promising young players. But just because a deal could happen doesn't mean the team is willing to go for it, right? Why the Heat might do this? Given the core that the Miami Heat has relied on as of recent seasons, it might seem odd that they're willing to dump some of them to get Donovan Mitchell. The truth of the matter, though, is that the Heat need another mega talent to complement Jimmy Butler, and Mitchell is absolutely that. To be clear, Tyler Herro is supremely talented, but his gifts fall well short of Donovan Mitchell's. At 22, he still has time to make up the ground between the two, but it's far from a safe bet. In acquiring Mitchell, the Heat are effectively landing the player they hope Herro can become. A big 3 of Mitchell, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo make for one of the most talented trios in the National Basketball Association. Pairing Mitchell with Kyle Lowry in the backcourt doesn't hurt either. Simply put, the Heat are in the championship business. This deal gives them the starriest roster they've had since LeBron James took his talents to South Beach. It doesn't come without risks. Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry are both aging out of their primes. It's possible that this deal doesn't yield a championship and the Heat miss those draft picks badly. No matter, fortune favors the brave. The Miami Heat have generally operated as a franchise that understands that. Why the Jazz might go for this? Giving up the best player in a deal generally isn't optimal. The Jazz are unequivocally doing that here. Still, if they're forced to, this trade gives them plenty of options. They could choose to remain competitive. Herro could be a leap away from making up a large portion of Mitchell's production. With Rudy Gobert manning the defense, the Jazz always have a chance. They could tinker with this roster and avoid a route this organization has not traditionally taken, a full-scale rebuild. On the other hand, they could break from convention. Omar Yurtseven has had a surprisingly solid rookie season. The Jazz could view the much younger big man as their new starter. That allows them to move Gobert in a separate trade for more younger players and draft capital. It's hard to say which route the Jazz would choose. Regardless, this trade gives them something teams don't generally have when a star demands a trade: options. But these aren't the only teams with the options to get him, of course. New York Knicks. The New York Knicks' interest in Donovan Mitchell is well chronicled. Utah is open to trading Mitchell, but Danny Ainge, who basically comes to these negotiations in a ski mask, is asking for the world. Shams Charania of The Athletic reported that New York offered the Jazz Obi Toppin, Evan Fournier, and a total of 5 future first-round picks for Mitchell, 2 unprotected and 3 protected, but Ainge wants more. According to Mark Berman of the New York Post, Ainge wants 4 unprotected picks instead of the 2 New York reportedly offered. That's a big difference. There are also reports that Ainge wants R.J. Barrett as part of the deal. You might ask yourself if the Knicks would be wise to give up that kind of package for Mitchell. Really, how good can a suddenly asset-starved team led by a small Brunson-Mitchell backcourt be in a loaded Eastern Conference? The Knicks reportedly believe Mitchell is good for 10 extra wins. But more than that, Berman reports that they believe having Brunson and Mitchell would spur another star to join them. See the conundrum? The Knicks think having Mitchell would intrigue another star to join the party. But the assets they would have to send out to get Mitchell would limit their ability to make another major move, especially if Barrett, who represents their most valuable active trade asset, is part of the package. The Knicks are trying to thread a needle here, and Ainge isn't going to it easy. The Los Angeles Lakers. It wouldn't be an NBA chat with at least some mention of the Lakers now, would it? This comes from a radio host from Arizona of all places. They noted that the Lakers, among other teams, would be interested in Mitchell, and that certainly wouldn't be the hardest thing to go and believe now, would it? After all, the Lakers are honestly in a state of both freefall and limbo. Last year was supposed to be their big comeback year. You know, the one where they go all in and come out with the NBA title. They didn't even make the playoff tournament and were one of the biggest drama stories ever as a result because of how bad they were. So, could the Lakers make a play for Mitchell to try and right the ship? Technically, yes. But whether that's actually likely is another story entirely. They don't have a lot of options, and many of those options would involve getting rid of Westbrook in a 3-team deal, which is anything but certain. As a result of all this, the state of Donovan Mitchell is more up in the air than it was before. He's very likely not going to be with the Jazz by the end of the upcoming season. But who gets him is truly a mystery. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at Donovan Mitchell and how his status is in terms of his trade options? Do you think that a trade with him will be made soon enough? Or do you think that there are going to be more obstacles in trying to get him out of Utah? Let us know in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time on the channel.